Psalm 3 is a psalm that kind of breaks your heart at the opening line. It says, a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom. You can read about David running from Absalom in 2 Samuel 15. David had spent a decade early in his life running from Saul, but he stayed faithful, right? Twice he could have killed Saul, but he wasn't going to take a shortcut. And so finally he became king. And he probably might have thought, well, the hardest part is behind me, right? The most painful part is behind me. Running from my life, from a king who I loved, a king who had become my father-in-law, can't get worse than that. And now, decades later, David's on the run again, but now from his own son. Psalm 1 assures us that the way to walk is to walk the way of the Lord, and that the one who walks that way is like a tree planted by streams of water. And then Psalm 2 assures us that the overarching plans of God concerning his Messiah, his anointed one, his promises will come to pass. And then now in Psalm 3, it makes it clear that even so, we're going to sometimes face real trouble and real suffering we didn't expect. And sometimes at a season of life when we thought the worst was behind us. And all three of those things are true. God's assurances and his promises are true, but they don't immunize us from the pain and difficulty in this life. But through it all, there's a God to whom we can turn and in whom we can hope. In the midst of facing circumstances that must have felt infinitely more painful than when he was on the run from Saul when he was a young man, now white-bearded David calls out to the Lord. In Psalm 3:2, he says, Lord, or Adonai, how great, how many or increasing are my troubles, my distresses. Right? The word troubles here, foes, is tsarai, meaning he's feeling squeezed, he's feeling pressed. He says, many are my stresses, many are rising up against me. Many are saying to my soul, Ein Yeshua be'Elohim. There is no rescue, there is no deliverance for him in God. A tired, elderly David on the run from his son is so stressed. He says, many, many, many. I'm pressed from the inside. Many are my distresses. I'm so stressed out. I'm outnumbered on the outside, right? The evidence of the numbers is piling up. Can't argue with the numbers. Many are rising up against me. And to top it off, there's this deafening noise of the many voices telling him how hopeless it all is. There is no help for him in God. You ever been there? Can't breathe, so much stress. You feel alone and outnumbered, and then you can't seem to find a word of hope. The thoughts and the voices bombarding your heart are telling you that God doesn't have an answer for you on this one. All right, this time it's different, old man. There's no help for you in God. He may have gotten you out of a lot of tight situations before, but that's over. You've used up all 9 lives, all that God had for you. But instead of arguing with those voices, instead of letting the internal stresses of evidence or numbers or the voices of hopelessness tell him who God is, David calls on the Lord himself. He says, Lord, many are my troubles. Many are those rising against me. Many are the voices bombarding me with hopelessness. But, verse 4, but you, O Lord, you are a shield surrounding me. So I'm not worried about the numbers because all I need is the one I've got is you, O Lord. You are my shield. You are my glory. You're the one lifting up my head. I'm not hanging my head in shame and defeat and hopelessness. Because in verse 5 he says, I'm calling out to you, and you answer me from your holy heights. And in verse 6 he says, as for me, I'm going to lie down and go to sleep, and I'm going to wake up. In the midst of this grief, I call on you, I rest in you. I'm going to wake up for another day because you sustain me, because you, O Lord, are my shield. You are my glory. You are the lifter of my head. No matter how many, 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 how overwhelming it all is. Right, lift your voice to him and let him lift you up. I don't care who they say you are, Lord. I know who you are. You are my glory. You are the lifter of my head. Let that be a song in your heart, not just in the good days, but especially in the days when you feel the many, many, many coming against you.